Hello everyone, how are you all today? Today I'm going to be talking about this word, trust. Now I think we all know what trust is, but actually it's something we feel a lot, but probably don't give it a lot of thought. I see trust almost like a bit of an ocean in ourselves. It kind of ebbs and flows depending on our mood, I suppose. But trust is one thing that in human relationships is absolutely essential and we use almost every minute of the day. Why is this important in terms of cryptocurrencies? Well, clearly, human relationships are developing at a rapid rate, and trust is one of the key elements that we need to be aware of in the cryptocurrency space. So that's what I'm going to be exploring with you today. So we're going to be having a look at trust, and I'm going to be doing that in three particular portions, if you like. The first is, what is trust? How is it developed in our modern society? I mean, that's a massive question, but I can give you an overview. Two, how it's developed in terms of internationally and the problems we're having with it at the moment and the failures that we're seeing in terms of international trust. And we all know this, we only have to look at the papers. And three, we're going to be looking at a totally new way that human beings are developing trust and how to deal and relate with each other in the modern world. And it's nothing less than a new paradigm of human interaction. So let's look at the very basics of trust. I think if you looked at trust from a point of, let's say, 1 to 10, the trust we have at 10 is probably the trust we have between ourselves and our mother. That's the first trust and the trust bond that we have, and it will always be with us throughout the whole of our lives, is our mum. And if we look at the opposite spectrum, the 1 or less than 1, I think that's probably the same as you can stay in the same room as somebody else without tearing lumps out of each other. Or you're confident you're going to attack or kill somebody, or that person's not going to attack and kill you. So between that sort of 1 and 10 is where we kind of place our trust in either individuals or agencies or anything else that we kind of interact with in this world. Now, as human beings, the story of human beings is we can trace back to about 2 million years ago, or perhaps even longer. And the type of human beings or hominids who were around then were predominantly hunter-gatherers. In other words, we took from the land what we needed and sort of wandered about effectively. We didn't really have that much of a territory. Well, some people did, some people didn't. Depends what resources we had on the land. Now that changed only about 10,000 years ago because we've discovered something called farming. So through technology, we developed tools to farm the land, like a ploughshare, for example. That's one of the main ones. And what that did was result in population increase. So originally when we were in hunter-gatherers, we weren't in any social groups any greater than 10 to 20 to 100, let's say. And it's an actual proven fact that human beings, modern human beings, even us, only actually trust anything up to 100 people at a time. That's our limit. That's the absolute maximum. So here we are living in cities of 1 million or so, and living in countries of, let's say, 50 million, 100 million, 200 million, and we're interacting in a reasonable way. So how is that possible? Well, effectively what happened was that we developed trusted third-party institutions. We began to create institutions for ourselves to manage the population as a whole. So we had the first institutions, of course, were kind of kingly or presidential or emperor or that type of thing. So you had a patrician family, let's say, and you trusted that family with the negotiations with other city-states or other groups or anything like that. And out of that, you then started developing other trusted third-party institutions like hierarchical structures, predominantly priesthood, education, scribes, army, law. All of those particular institutions, hierarchical and pyramidal, that we invested our trust in on our behalf. And that's basically the structure of our nation state as it is today, almost everywhere in the world. It hasn't changed at all. 10,000 years ago, there was an institutional revolution in the way in which we manage our trust and how we interact as human beings. So to sum up, we've gone from societal groups of, let's say, 20 to 100, to societal groups of thousands up to millions, by the use of these trusted third parties, these institutional hierarchical elements that we've created in order to manage our relationship with each other. So we've talked about trust, and now we're going to talk about the further development of trust on an international basis, on a worldwide basis, because that was really the trust we developed from a nation or city-state. So how does that model work on a worldwide basis? Well, what we've done is we've tried to recreate those hierarchical structures in a worldwide sense. So we've got organizations like the United Nations, like the World Bank, all sorts of NGOs and charities and that type of thing. But they're really not that effective because there's no overall control, and all of the nations who are members of those organizations are competing. So they are really pretty ineffectual. In addition to that, and putting into the mix, there is also the fiat money system, the money system that we know now. And that money system is stretched to its limits. It's really not fit for purpose. But of course, we haven't got anything else, so what else can we use? And the main problem we have with these hierarchical structures on an international scale is that there is a tiny cable of people, maybe 100 people or so, that understand the workings of all these machinations that are going on. And it's those 100 people that affect the lives of billions of people across the planet. And we're assuming, of course, that those 100 people or 200 people know what they're doing and are good actors. And that's not necessarily the case. So let me give you a common example of where the fiat money system doesn't really work in this modern world. Let's say I wanted to send money to somebody in Japan, let's say. It would probably be quicker for me to catch a plane, fly to Japan, and give that person cash in money than to rely on the fiat system, which will probably take 2 or 3 days. So we've talked a little bit about the fiat money system. We've talked about our pyramidal structures where we invest our trust into these pyramidal hierarchical structures, and we invest our trust, many millions of us invest our trust in a very small amount, group of people that we assume are good actors. Now I want to introduce you to something that technology has brought us that could change everything we know about trust and about engaging and doing business with people on a worldwide level. So the technology I'm referring to is blockchain. And blockchain can be analogous to the plough 10,000 years ago. Because what the plough did and what agriculture did was usher in a new era for human beings and their relationships. What do I mean by that? Well, the first instance of blockchain was Bitcoin. It's something you've all heard about, I'm quite sure. It's never out of the news at the moment. So what's so significant about Bitcoin and the way it changes relationships between people? Well, the fact is, Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer asset. In other words, I can send anybody anywhere in the world a Bitcoin or part of a Bitcoin, and that is an asset. Why is that so brilliant? Well, because I don't need a trusted third party to do it. I don't need a bank. I don't need a government. I don't need a priesthood. I don't need an education system. I just need to do it. And I get onto the blockchain, have a private key, and I can send a piece of Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency to everybody. Now you might say, well, why is that so significant? What I'm saying to you is it changes the game completely. You see, the point is that nobody owns Bitcoin. No government, no individual, no organization. It's an open source utility that's open to everybody. Nobody owns it, and everybody can take part in it. And I mean everybody. Think of all the unbanked people on the planet. There must be something like 3 billion, perhaps more, people on the planet that are unbanked, have no access to banking services whatsoever. Think of the transformational effect that Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency will have on those individuals. And that is why I believe that we are witnessing the beginning of an institutional revolution that has only happened once in the entire history of human beings. So how is this going to affect us in our daily lives, as ordinary people like you and me? Well, the answer is, I really don't know. And there aren't many people that do. It's developing at a rapid rate as we speak. There are billions and billions of dollars being invested into this space. But I do know one thing for certain, and that is things are going to change. If you want to join us on this journey in exploring this fascinating subject, then please do. Subscribe on our video, hit the alarm bell there so that you'll know when we make new videos, and I'll see you next time. My name's Jay from Crypto Brits.